Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to give everyone a minute to hop in the webinar. Gilbert, always representing Irmo, South Carolina. Thank you for being here.
I was about to say, hey, there's another person from Raleigh. The okra strut, fantastic.
All right, we're just going to wait one more minute, make sure everybody gets in the room here. All right, while everybody is joining, I will go ahead and kick things off. My name is Ann Sari. I'm the Executive Director of the Converged User Group. I wanted to welcome everybody for joining us today. We have a great program ahead of you, and we are really excited to have a conversation with our speakers. I think as we get close to wrapping up the end of this year, it's good to take a look at what's ahead and talk about the future and have those thought-provoking conversations. So we're really excited for today's discussion, and I want to encourage everybody to please ask questions. This is a program that we heard from members that they wanted to hear, so please ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A. Our speakers are here to help and provide some valuable insights for everybody. I do want to take a minute and just spend a second talking about the Converged User Group, because if you're not familiar with the user group, we offer various events like this throughout the year. So anything from in-person events, we were recently in Barcelona at VMware Explore Europe, to webinars and to programs like this to have some thought leadership segments. So our goal is to bring members together so that you can have these conversations with one another and really make the most out of your solutions. The user group focuses on Dell, HCI, and CI, and our mission is to make sure that you're having those conversations and that you have a community of experts at your fingertips at all times. So I do want to also thank Dell Technologies and VMware for being sponsors of our program. Thank you for everything that you do for the user community and offering programs like this. And with that, I will pass it over to David Giesecke with our board of directors to kick things off. And I'll jump in at the end and provide some updates for everybody before we close out. David?
Fantastic, Ann. Thank you very much. Give me a thumbs up. I think you can all hear me. Yep. All right. Fantastic. Thank you and welcome. Great introduction, Ann. I'm excited to be here. I wasn't supposed to be here. In fact, we were supposed to have Chris Stanley, our board member from LoopUp, co-hosting today. Unfortunately, he was with me in Barcelona last week, and he didn't dodge the bullet. He's out with laryngitis. He feels great, but he doesn't sound so good. So we're going to let Chris maybe jump into the chat from time to time, but I'm here with Mike and Joe, and we're going to have a great conversation. We'll get started right away. I'll ask you guys to please introduce yourselves, and then we'll dive right in. So we'll start with Mike.
Okay, I was going to say, is it one of those typical handoffs? You just wait for Joe and I to talk first, like and then we talk over each other. You know, that's usually how it happens. But thank you for giving the direction. So it's actually really cool to be here, and thank you everybody who is on the call listening, and ask us anything that you want. So I thought to myself, this is like the worst part of speaking for me, is introducing myself. I'm terrible at it. I don't like doing it. And I thought, how could I be convincing and try to pretend that I actually enjoy doing this? And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to tell you why do I work for Dell? Yeah. I think that's a okay, now you hopefully after I do my half-hour who am I presentation, that maybe you'll understand why I work for Dell. And no, it's not because Dell gives all the employees off for Christmas week, by the way. That's not the reason why. So the first chapter of my career, I spent 24 years with IBM, and very quickly, I like to tell people what I worked on, because there is a very high probability that some of you on the call actually run some of the products that I actually worked on. I am the co-founder and chief architect of Webster Application Server. I worked on the information server suite of products, which was data stage, quality stage, information analyzer, metadata server when IBM acquired Essential. And I worked in Tivoli for a period of time. So I've worked on enterprise scale platforms my entire career. In 2012, I was extended an opportunity to come join Dell from some of my former IBM colleagues that came over to Dell. And I transitioned very quickly into be the CTO of Boomi. So I was the CTO of the Boomi company for a little over 7 years. And it was my job to go over to that company and grow that company from a small startup company into an enterprise company. And I think many of you might know that now Boomi was sold October last year for $4 billion to private equity. I made a decision that I joined Dell to be with Dell. I didn't join Dell to originally be with Boomi, although that's where I landed and I stayed there a long time and it was great. It was a great experience for me going to build basically a startup company to an enterprise company. But I came back to Dell to have a broader influence. And so what I'm currently doing in Dell that is basically an aggregation of everything that I know from enterprise to small to enterprise. My entire career, I've built platforms that integrated infrastructure, people, applications, machines, devices, data. And I'm in an organization in the office of the CTO that is officially working on ecosystems. And ecosystems is about purposefully integrating technology that makes us Dell technology products better together with other technologies in the industry. How can we be better together? So taking my enterprise scale integration roots, I now am responsible for helping build integration partnership strategies to make our products better together for all of you. And that's what I work on today.
That's awesome, Michael. And we'll dig into that a bit more. But fantastic and welcome and thank you for being here. Dr. Joe. Can I call you Dr. Joe?
Yeah, so Dr. Joe is fine. Dr. White is my dad's, title, so you can't use that. But so anyway, I'm Joseph White. Like Michael, I'm a fellow at Dell, and my background is actually quite different from his. I've been essentially an infrastructure and data analytics guy my entire career. So I started life as a physicist, and I did that for 10 years. I worked at Fermilab, I worked at Stanford Linear Accelerator Center on basically data acquisition, online control systems, online data analysis, and so on. And you're like, well, how does that translate to infrastructure? Well, because it's all about moving data from point A to point B, grabbing that data and using that data to get some value, right? So physics value, business value, infrastructure operations value. And I made the jump to Silicon Valley in '97, created a startup called Nishan Systems, which got acquired by a company called Big Data, which got acquired by a company called Brocade. I left, went to NetApp, and then Juniper Networks, and then Dell. And of course, Brocade got acquired by Broadcom. My startup used to resell through EMC. So I've known EMC guys since the late 1990s. And so now Dell and EMC merged, and so I'm back with people I've known sometimes for 20 years. In the industry, relationships matter a lot. And I'll sort of play off what Michael said of like, why am I at Dell? So I'm at Dell because we have server, storage, networking, software that deal with infrastructure, primarily data protection software, but we actually have lots of other software. In fact, most of what we do, including developing the hardware, is writing software. And the evolution of infrastructure that Michael and I will discuss today to support sort of new ways of thinking about workloads I think you guys will find very interesting. So that my journey to get to Dell was different than Michael's, but also interesting. And we've ended up kind of in the same place where we care about this end-to-end portfolio and the ability to handle any job that comes along, any workload, any kind of data in a coherent way.
Yeah.
So
Thank you,
Dave-
Joe. It's a pleasure to be able to bring you guys to the members like this. And I think that's one of the things that's really special about the Converge user group. Last year we had Jimmy Pike, and he had a fantastic conversation with JT. JT's the president of the Converge user group. And he said, I'd love to have more of this. And we'd love to really partner with you guys and pick your brains and have these thought-provoking conversations. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. This will be available on demand. So, afterwards we can, if people know folks who missed it, they can certainly benefit from watching it again. We'll get started. I think this is important. We didn't cover it last year. You guys alluded to it, but I think it will really help members. If you could go into, tell us a bit about Dell Technologies' technical leadership structure, the technical programs, and the technical culture. Some people may have heard of the Office of the CTO and everything, but I think it really will help to reinforce what you're saying about how innovative Dell actually is, by showing folks really how this is structured.
Okay.
Right. So our overall Office of the CTO has a number of sub areas to it, right? One, we have the product and operations group, and Michael is part of that group. I don't know, Michael, maybe you can say a little bit about what that one does.
Sure. So this is John Rose is the global CTO for Dell Technologies. I'm in John Rose's organization. And so just in a nutshell, John's group is primarily future facing. So the majority of the work that goes on in John's group is many things. It is people that are dedicated to understanding the latest and best practices around tools, around programming languages, things that are coming on the horizon. As a matter of fact, I just saw some things published about the work that we're doing with quantum. People might be surprised at that, like, oh my gosh, what's Dell doing with quantum? You can go and Google it right now. Things just got published. So it's the group. And by the way, it is absolutely important to know that although my words might make it sound like a silo, it is not. I mean, it is a highly collaborative, with all the groups, and Joe and I will touch on that over time. So you have a research group working on a number of areas, exploring how should we be ready for you in regards to quantum? Like what's going to happen? What's going to happen with metaverse? What's going on with Web3? What's going on with blockchain? It's many things like that are already upon us, by the way. There's also a strategy group within that group. My group, Ecosystems, is also within that group. I'll let you carry on, Joe, and I'll just fill in the gaps as you go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next CTO group we have is CTIO, we call it, the Chief Technology and Innovation Office, and that's the Infrastructure Solutions CTO group, and we're focused on server, storage, networking, and data protection, and all things infrastructure. And we collaborate with the telco group as well, and obviously we collaborate with the P&O Octo that we were just describing to you, to take ideas and industry direction and turn them into things that become products. So we're the bridge to turning things into infrastructure products. So we have Paul Perez as our leader of that group, and he's supported by Ihab Tarazi and Tommy Sally. Now, in addition, of course, Dell has a large amount of client. So desktops, laptops, monitors, all manner of other peripherals. And there's a CTI, a client solutions CTIO group, and we collaborate with them around our technical domains and our Dell-wide strategy. There's also a CTO group in services. So how do we operationalize Dell to your benefit, to our customers' benefit? And so there's a small team in services that is forward looking for how Dell itself is going to implement new technologies. And finally, we've just created a telco CTO office, because we realize that telco and wireless are very important, and Dell's going there in a big way. And so that's a brand new kind of fifth CTO arm. And across all of these groups, we collaborate through the technical leadership community. And because all of the upper level individual contributors, so distinguished member of technical staff, distinguished engineer, senior distinguished engineer, and fellow are all member of a single community that cuts across all of these organizational boundaries. And we do that so we can improve diversity and be more inclusive. We can break down silos, look for commonality, set common direction, and collaborate in a more effective way. And we're really responsible, along with product management and the executives, so the TLC plus product management plus the executives are responsible for owning and setting the direction for Dell. Oh, Michael, anything you want to add to that?
Oh my gosh, yes, I do. So a couple things to point out. One is Dell's a large company. Each of the areas in the previous slide, there is a CTO. I mean, there is a CTO for that business, because they have a very large responsibility. I mean, they have a responsibility for a significant portion of the Dell portfolio. So you need somebody that's an expert in that domain. They in turn run teams that you would typically think a CTO office would run. I ran one in Boomi at the time as well. And so therefore I would have been another bubble on that slide. So that person as a leader not only needs to provide technical leadership, but also all those CTO offices are very closely in sync in collaborating and guiding the technology of the future for the company. I want to, by the way, I thought to myself, do you know what'd be really funny, because I do crafty things like this, is give the names of everybody, and then everybody can send them a LinkedIn, and they wonder why they're getting all these LinkedIn invites. But yeah, I mean, that's just my sense of humor when I think about these things. But you have John Rose, which is the global CTO. You have Paul Perez, as Joe White mentioned. And I want to give a shout out to these people, because these people are like industry level people. I mean, like these are some of the top tier people in their areas, in the industry. Glenn Robson, who's CTO for client. Alexander Keller, CTO for services. One of my IBM brothers. Didn't know him at IBM, admittedly, but he came from IBM. Distinguished engineer from IBM. And Manish Singh, who, as Joe said, recently shaped CTO office, came over with a wealth of experience. So it is really, compared to Joe and I, it's an incredible lineup of leaders that's in Dell.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's something that's it's a quiet secret, I mean, I guess that's redundant, but I think we could do a better job of letting our customers understand this, because it's a bit of a powerhouse. I also saw a headline recently that Dell's got more patents filed. We were in the top 20 companies of patents filed last year, and consistently we're up there.
Yep.
We beat out some of the techie companies that people think of when the
Right.
FANGs.
Yeah, it's in my secret checklist, by the way. Like I have my cheat sheet to my left. I mean, of course I would have my cheat sheet like, hey, things that might be interesting to slip in, but since you beat me to it, yeah, I did a looked at a ranking and Dell was like 16. I mean, globally, I mean, we're talking worldwide, and it's, it's kind of a quiet thing. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that. But the most important thing, your opening question, David, about culture, there is no doubt about it that as myself, Joe, and others, it is actually really, it is really emphasized within the technical community in Dell, that Dell actually drives a patent program. And by the way, a patent program that actually rewards those in the company really quite well. I mean, it is a very well-funded incentive program within Dell.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's great to hear. I will
So,
have to
so
I'll have to
it's
start
an,
thinking.
yeah. So as an example, ISG alone out of Dell generates about 1,500 a year.
And Joe, that's largely software, can I guess?
Oh, it's
Or
everything.
it's
So
Everything. Yeah.
hardware, it's infrastructure, it's utility, it's protocols, everything. So we cover the entire spectrum of infrastructure and client. And so I'm a member. I run one of the patent committees within ISG, and I've been doing patent stuff for a dozen years in the industry, running committees and reviewing patents. And like I say 1,500 a year is pretty good, even given the size of Dell, from one segment, right? And then other segments have their numbers, but it's very good. And what does this point to? It points to this quote: "If we don't solve future problems, we'll be gone." That's what we're aiming for here. And just one more little blurb on the TLC, but I think we've talked about all this stuff, right? So TLC is used to promote people on individual contributor tracks. That's how Michael and I both ended up as fellows. I came up through the ranks. I joined Dell as a distinguished engineer, and I've been promoted to fellow. So Dell really does take care of its technical individual contributors, and this is important for attaining talent so that we can solve future problems. So then you're saying, well, what if we looked at the scope of what Dell cares about and where we think the emphasis needs to be going forward? So to do that, we jointly created, across all these Okta organizations and the TLC, the upper levels of the TLC, we created a set of technology domains to categorize and motivate and organize our thinking and our work. And so there are 11 of them here, and it's everything from advanced compute to AI/ML to sustainability to user experience. And we do a yearly assessment of where's the technology going. And so we come up with 50 to 100 important trends that are going to happen over the next 2 to 8 or 10 years. And this is a great way to understand and anchor the scope of Dell's thinking.
Okay, now this is where I come in and add some more fluff to it. So a few things. One is but it is an incredibly laborious activity, by the way. This is like, this chart doesn't magically appear this way. I mean, it takes a very long time. And as Joe said, we basically refresh it every year. Within each of these categories is subdomains, because you look at things like data management. I mean, look, I'm considered a data management expert, for the company. And I hate the term because it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it's everything about data, and for which it has 4 million categories. But we go through painstakingly and define the subdomains for each one of these, by which complements Dell's core competency, But at the same time, it also provides opportunity for our technical leaders to excel and contribute, learn new things, and actually continue to grow their career across different technology areas in the company. So this is actually used, this chart is a very powerful tool of decisions for the company and the careers of our leaders.
Yeah, and it tells you what we think is important.
Right.
And for the subdomains, there's probably 90 subdomains or 100 subdomains
Yep.
across these areas. And again, this tells you where we're putting emphasis, where we're putting our thinking, what we think is valuable.
And what's interesting here, as I look this over, a lot of these topics are also key topics that members want to hear more from. So, it'd be fun if we could revisit with you guys or do a touch point, check in a couple times as we go through the year. The conversations, it's great to see that this is, we've got such powerhouse behind these ideas, and it's aligned so well with what the members are interested in. Guys, I want to get to, this is a fantastic intro, and I think it's a really important setting the stage for, why we're doing this and how we're looking forward and really what we're thinking about. The meat of the matter that I'd like to pull out from the conversations we've had building up to this, let's talk about the workloads. We're going to need to be running workloads forever, right? But are they going to change? What's the future look like? And then for me, I was doing a bunch of VR stuff as we came through the pandemic. The Converge User Group has been really blazing paths in bringing people together in VR, and how can we have those near in-person meetings. We hear a lot about the metaverse. I hate Meta, and I hate the guy who begins with M and his last name is Z. But what really is the metaverse? Like, can we talk about that? What's going on, and how is that going to impact workloads as we go forward?
Sure. Hey, not to go backwards, and don't hate me for this, but I always am thinking, like, what's the bi-directional benefit of us talking to people out there? And I really genuinely wish that that I could, we could talk to other people, and maybe we'll have time for that or not. But of the CTO areas and the technology domains, for anybody out there that thinks a great follow-up for a future Converge User Group topic, jot it down and send it to David. Yeah. I am one of the Dell Fellows responsible for the data management tech domain, and Joe is at least advanced software dev methods, if I'm not mistaken, Joe?
Yeah, so I'm a domain leader for cloud operating model, advanced software development methods, and networking software and technologies. But my day job actually takes me also into advanced compute and the storage area, plus a little bit of AI/ML and a little bit of edge. So, so I have 3 domains that I'm a co-leader on, and then like I say, I contribute to others. So we really cross-attach here, and at the fellow level, we're very cohesive actually, and spread across all of these domains. And I think what we're going to do here is, Michael's going to walk you through kind of what is the metaverse really, and how does that affect workloads, and what are the workloads of the future? And then I'm going to talk about, then I'll come back and talk about some of the infrastructure trends that support that workload evolution. So what's infrastructure doing sort of in response and to drive that evolution harder?
Okay, this ought to be interesting. All right, David, here we go. So I'll give you my definition of the metaverse. Look, people have their own opinions. People have their own agendas around metaverse. I mean, admittedly, I'm just going to give you mine. It's actually quite simple. It genuinely is a turn of the crank of the integration of the the physical and the virtual, like the increasing seamless integration in our lives of machine to machine and machine to human. I mean, it's already happening. The second you get in your smart car, right? I mean, you as a human have integrated with a device and a machine, and a lot of crap is happening. I mean, a lot. You're going to see, look, it's going to be years off that someone's going to operate on you. You know what I mean? Like, in an operating room with robots. I mean, although as much as we like to, humor, we see those, but genuinely, metaverse is a way to think differently about how to generate new business value of the integration of human and machine. It's the physical and if you really look at, it's funny that, David, you voiced your opinion about Meta, right? And the reason why I kind of chuckled at that is, from an ecosystem standpoint, one of the things that myself and others in Dell are looking at is what's happening in the industry with very unique, different relationships that are being built in the industry. I mean, built around verticals and segments that you never saw before. You see the typical gravitation of companies working together to promote open standards and openness. And then you have companies that, of course, are going to go after the proprietary route and the closed route, for Meta. But metaverse is applying newer technologies to what is likely projected to be over 29 billion devices online by 2030. So what does that mean? That means that the infrastructure we have today to manage that, run the workloads, manage the data is not going to work. It's not. So when businesses get done rolling their eyes, they really should be asking themselves, what is our metaverse strategy to be relevant as a business 3, 4, 5 years out? And what are those workloads? Where's the data? What infrastructure are we going to run it on? What edge technology do we need? What's the new AI? Does my business need a digital human? I mean, it is a genuine area from a workload standpoint that it's going to transform infrastructure. And now is the time to start thinking about that.
Yeah, I get overwhelmed by just listening to you. And I think back,
don't hate me like you do other people.
No, I couldn't do that. Just thinking this year, and I don't even know if it consists of that, but in the past year, I put in a Wi-Fi ceiling fan and Blink doorbell cameras, and linking with my another thing I probably hate, the Amazon stuff. But my kids can now control the ceiling fan from across the room, and I know when they come back home from school, I don't even know where that data is going. Part of me is a little concerned about, okay, how much does Amazon know about me, and what are they doing with that? And maybe we can get the conversation into that as well. But as all of this, we're generating more and more data. We have to support it somehow. We have to figure out how to use it. How fast is this going to happen? And when we're talking about multi-cloud and edge, is it going to look a lot different than it does today?
Yeah. It's going to be quite different. I have so many other thought-provoking things to add, but I'm going to give the floor to Joe.
Yeah. So if you take what Michael and David were just talking about, and you say, what has to happen to the infrastructure to make that real? You end up with a few big themes. You end up with scale, security, mobility, flexibility, and operations. All right. And when I say scale, I mean scale of all of the individual components. Okay. So storage has to scale. Multi-cloud is a way to scale. Edge, core, colo, cloud, multi-cloud tying that all together to have a giant distributed infrastructure has to scale. To do that, the systems have to become more modular and more flexible. So we're working on modular hardware standards and the use of new technologies like data processing units and how to do AI/ML GPU farms in a more effective way and deploy those at the edge. 5G, true 5G has multiple orders of magnitude of efficiency compared to LTE 4G and what we call 5G today. If you look at that spider web graph and you look at all of the places 5G is improving, it's completely ridiculous. Better spectral efficiency, better power density, raw throughput is up, cost effectiveness is up. I mean, it's ridiculous. What does that mean? That means there's more connectivity, more data. Networking switches and wired connectivity is still exploding. If you look at storage growth has been off the charts for years, and it's continuing to be off the charts. If you wanted to have truly autonomous infrastructure, like Michael and David were talking about, the scale at which you have to do operations becomes ridiculous. So can you hire enough people to do that? Probably not. So how do you deal with it? Well, you have AI ops. How hard is AI ops? Turns out it's really hard. There are probably 100 companies saying they do AI ops and trying to integrate AI ops. None of them have the perfect answer. And some of them don't really do AI ops. They have more like guided workflows. They call it AI ops because it's a hot term. But ultimately, you probably need something like what we're calling a synthetic operator to run your systems, or at least greatly expand and assist humans for running. Because again, how many exabytes could a human control? How many thousand network switches? How many tens of thousands of cores can a single human control? And the answer is, well, the more the better, because that lets you have even more infrastructure at bigger scale. And can you do this whole thing distributed? So can you have cloud resident control planes that control your edge? We think so. Do you have to have some distributed control for that? Absolutely. Is that hard? Yes. And then if you don't secure the whole thing, there are bad actors in the world who are going to break in. And where does security start? Security starts in the supply chain. So security isn't just, yeah, I've got IPsec and or TLS and I'm securing, my tunnel to the app I'm connecting to from my, my phone. That isn't security. Security is end to end. Every component is secure through its entire life with zero trust technology. So what does zero trust really mean? It doesn't mean you don't trust anyone and never connect. You have to connect to be useful. What it means is that you have methods of connecting that are exceedingly difficult to impossible with current technology to break into. And typically it requires a human breach. Somebody has to give up a secret or allow access to somewhere to breach it under proper zero trust. And so we're heading towards that. What this really leads to then is a giant distributed environment that you have to move applications and data around to. And to get data value, you have to understand all your data and where it is. And I think that's back to Michael to talk about data and data value.
Well, I mean, I actually had a conversation this morning with a group of people. We run an internal metaverse forum, and the topic today was data management. I wanted to hear, I mean, I don't want to seed all the conversations, but we actually talked about what's the new data management challenges because of applying, I'll say, metaverse, techniques. It's not a reference architecture. We all know metaverse is a concept, but I like to basically say, a metaverse technique, it's like, because you think differently, is how are you going to make your business more competitive? And how are you going to do that based on the data that's now available and the devices and the machines and your partners? One is it will not be possible because of scale. I'll go back to Joe to be able to process all of the data, especially if you're trying to do ML, AI, I mean, real time. It's just not the amount of data, it's not going to be possible. So there's going to be new techniques for managing data. The landscape, what's funny is, this is where I enjoy sort of analyzing people's personalities. And, there's the old saying, like, most people are sheep, they just follow along. And a lot of people think data silos are bad. And it's like,
Yes, it depends.
they're not bad. I mean, and the reason why I say they're not bad is because they're never going to go away. So don't take the mentality that they're bad. You need to do something about them. Solve the problem. You know what I mean? Solving the problem is integration. I mean, one of them, right? A multi-cloud world. I mean, the location of data is also exploding. So to be able to manage that from a data standpoint is just, that also is going to add some very interesting and very complex data management challenges. I was going to mention zero trust. Incredibly important, end to end, as Joe said, the entire life cycle, everything from the infrastructure to the data. What does zero trust data mean? What's the pedigree? What's the lineage? The other topic is privacy.
Yeah.
Privacy.
Maybe we could talk about that a little bit, because to interrupt a little bit, Michael, you mentioned some things that blew my mind when we were talking earlier, but I'm also kind of stuck in this realm, just my personal family. We've got, we've got Siri listening, we've got Alexa listening. Now I have these doorbell cameras that are recording, a lot of audio and video. I don't know whether I should have it recording all the time or not recording except for other times, but I've kind of capitulated as to, I get more benefit than I think I'm losing. But tell me about, what am I losing?
We could go on forever about this, so I'll try to contain myself a little bit, to make people just think a little bit. That's all. Just think about it. You are talking within the scope of your own home.
Yeah.
Just your realm. When you said Alexa, by the way, my Alexa woke up to my right. So it's listening. That's just within the scope of your home. And for us as technologists, it does cross our mind. For the average person, not, in our field, probably doesn't really worry them too much. But out in society is where I'm starting to see an interesting revolution about everyday people becoming concerned. They become concerned because someone else is concerned, it's social media. But because of machines, because of our own cell phone, we have no privacy. And it's starting to bother people, and rightfully so. Facial recognition technology is commodity. I mean, it doesn't cost much, you know what I mean?
Delta flight, I was amazed. I walked on, like last week, I walked onto the airplane, and there's this camera, there's not a person taking my ticket anymore or any of this. They got a camera pointed at me, and all of a sudden it's a green light and I'm supposed to walk on. I had no idea. I didn't feel like I had a choice either.
There's some pretty frightening things. I mean, cameras are everywhere in the commercial space. They see you, they can identify you, no problem. But imagine someone's dash cam on their car takes a picture of your license and basically knows who you are, like a complete stranger. And then I've had people sort of not argue with me, but counter and say, but wait a minute, Michael, someone can take a picture of you, with their phone, and like, that's true. Or law enforcement's been, gathering credit card records, you know what I mean, to show where you've been, when you bought things. Yeah, that's true too. But I would contend that nobody really cared that much about those at the time, but they're starting to care more. Like and by the way, I have a punchline for all of this that is just my personal opinion about where do we go with this, and where do companies go with this? And this is just, again, my own personal opinion is, I honestly think that a competitive advantage to a company is transparency. Transparency. It's like you should earn the right to demonstrate that you can provide a high value service, to a B2B or B2C, and you're doing it because of many reasons. One, it's inevitable that every business is going to demonstrate that they're sustainable. So that is, a revolution that's already happening. So how do you do that? You got to start managing and collecting data. But two is transparency. I think that finally the public is realizing, again, most of them are sheeps, and they realize that a lot of social media platforms are evil and they have their own opinions, which some are true and some are not true. But I think transparency. And I actually, for the first time, not that long ago, came across, anybody can Google this, by the way. I wrote it down to make sure I remembered. It's DTPR, Digital Trust in Places and Routines. You have an organization that is promoting transparency of devices that are being used in public, right? As like, hey, that's, I want to know. Not only do I want to know, but I also want to know that if you are using my data, that you're actually using it ethically and for good to help society, help quality of living, help traffic. I mean, it doesn't matter. And I'm really enjoying watching this evolution of what, of the whole human machine and what's happening. But again, at the end of the day, the only way you can support these initiatives is infrastructure and data management.
Right. And so if you think about Dell's relationship to this, what does Dell want to be? Dell wants to be trusted, open standards, flexible, at scale operations with the big emphasis on trusted. So put your data on Dell systems, it's protected, it's segregated. It's not, we know it can't be misused from our point of view. So the storage array is not going to let you access something you don't want to. The servers are very hard to, break into or impossible to break into. Everything operates at scale, things in the Dell cloud. Dell wants to be a trusted company in this world with the infrastructure it builds and provides and the solutions and systems it provides. Okay. We don't want to hold anyone's data hostage. We want to have proper access to that data, but not improper access. And we want the components we build to be end-to-end secure for their entire life. That's our goal. And then also sustainable and green. We have that whole initiative in parallel. So secure, sustainable, operated at scale so that we can be ethically correct in this world that Michael has painted a picture of.
And I'll add to that with my ecosystem hat on. It is also our partners. We just don't willy-nilly partner, right? I mean, we are partnering because they join us. I mean, on this mission for the future of workloads, the future of privacy, the future of trust, the future of scale, the future of sustainability. So, I mean, it is ingrained in everything that we do, even with our partners.
Yeah. And into that, it tangential, but related to this, I had a conversation with a customer last week who they're a big customer of ours. And we were talking security and all the challenges with ransomware and making sure that, there's trust in that supply chain. And they scan their smaller vendors regularly and sure enough, find problems and mishaps. And rather than kick them out, they go in and kind of give them, pro bono help, because it helps them in the long run, and their vendor really can't handle some of the attacks that they're getting. So, it is an ecosystem. If you can strengthen the ecosystem, everybody benefits.
Yep.
Yeah. And another thing you should take away from this, and something you guys should really think about, is what does this do to the complexity of solutions, particularly at the edge? And the answer is it ramps them up massively.
Yeah.
So the scale and complexity at the edge is going to go through the roof. And that's actually probably necessary. I mean, you can argue goodness or badness, but it's necessary to achieve this world of the broader vision of metaverse. Okay, because you can't move everything back to a single central data center and process it there.
And
yeah, good.
can I think of metaverse as just using technology to better society?
Right. And so then you have to be able to build and operate that stuff. And one of the big things we're concerned about is how do you build and operate that much stuff? So we have a multi-cloud initiative, we have Apex, we have an Edge initiative, we have the telco initiative, we have all of the data management, data mobility initiatives that go along with those. We have zero trust. I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's important. Secure supply chain initiatives. We have sustainability initiatives, because once you get to that scale, how do you actually physically operate it all? How do you cool it? How do you power it? How do you deal with the waste products and optimize use there? And Dell has a very good track record of this, and we're doubling down. So it all sort of comes back together in this to support the metaverse. Again, you got to have scale, security, mobility, flexibility, and automated operations for a giant distributed infrastructure.
And even though this feels, very forward looking, very, maybe out there, maybe these are all great kind of foundational sounding boards in which anybody building out their infrastructure at this point, no matter what phase they're in, as long as they're thinking about this, it's probably going to help them make better decisions as they go forward. Is that fair?
Yes. How could you argue with that statement?
Well,
The answer is yes, of course.
try not to argue with myself.
So, does anybody have any questions or any commentary on this? I mean, we talked about a lot of big picture ideas and a lot of crazy, some not even crazy stuff, just interesting stuff. Anybody have any comment or question, chat, or you can put it in the Q&A, or if you want to come off mute, then we can take you off mute as well.
Yeah, if you want to be heard. And by the way, I always I look at the count. I look at the count to see if we're holding people. And actually we did pretty good. I mean, it's been holding at 39 total, of course, including us, but
yeah, it started at 32, went to 33, and stuck at 33. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You can ask questions. You want to make a request of any areas, you know what I mean, you want to dig into. If Joe and I can't cover, of course, I'm sure the Converge group is always looking for, next topics. And for the record, I want to say this, Jimmy Pike, a well-deserved retirement. And the person I interviewed with to be recognized as distinguished engineer, when Joe said, I came in with no title in Dell and it was distinguished engineer first. So I'm an outside in, just like Joe. We followed the same path. But Jimmy Pike was the gatekeeper for my recognition to distinguished engineer back in 2013.
And actually, we have an internal project name. Two internal project names to honor Jimmy. So Boonville, because he was born in Mississippi, and Pikes Peak, because of course he's Jimmy Pike. I won't tell you what they refer to, but we actually have two internal project names. So Jimmy is great. So
that's fantastic. We really enjoyed having him on. JT couldn't get enough of him. Absolutely well-deserved retirement. We'd love to have you guys back. I don't want to put you on the hook publicly right now, but this has been fantastic. There's so much more conversation I would like to have, and I look forward to being able to extend those conversations with you guys.
Okay. So I do have to, I did get a question, so I wasn't going to mention it. So yes, these are games, and I play all kinds of games. I've got a collection of a few thousand. This is probably 10% of my collection. And yes, I play turn-based role-playing games. I play computer games. I play board games of all types, simulation games, as well as kind of more family Euro games. This is a real background, and that's what it is. So, usually someone will ask on these calls, given, we're technologists and whatnot, all of us, there's a high proportion of game players. So about 10% of the people I talk to online from partners or customers will be game players, maybe 15%. It's pretty impressive. So, we've had nice side conversations after calls and whatnot. So it's fun.
It's not as exciting for me, but everybody likes my clock, so that's my go-to.
I like it when it's big enough that I can actually see it, because then I'm not looking down in the corner of my
Exactly.
screen to check the time.
Well, it allowed us to do a time check in
Exactly.
right on time.
Exactly.
So I kept watching the clock behind Michael's shoulder the whole time, and I'm like, "Are we on pace? Are we on pace?" We weren't. This is great.
It's
So
fantastic.
we enjoyed talking to you guys, and we're happy to come back and go into detail on any of the topics we discussed. And if Michael and I can't cover it, we have 100 colleagues who are experts in all these sub areas we brought up, and so we have coverage on everything.
That's fantastic. Joe, Michael, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. You've given the members such great things to think about as we go into the holiday season, where maybe workloads are a little slower, but you've got some time to really digest and wonder. Do those thinking and walking as you literally digest your turkey next week.
My last piece of it, look, we could, I wrote down my cheat sheet, some final words, but I thought the last thing I'll say with great humor is don't panic now when you go out, in society. Don't get anxious over it. Just look for things. That's all. Just look for things.
Thank you.
If you don't panic, do you have to have your towel with you?
Yes.
Look
You
at it as
always have a towel.
opportunity. It's opportunities all around you. Look at it as an opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, folks, for attending. Ann, I'll turn it back to you for the final wrap up.
Great. Thank you all again for joining us today. We put a bunch of links in the chat, so scroll up if you missed any of those. And one final plug here, annual member survey is open right now. So we need your feedback so we can make sure we're offering you the best value in programs for members. So please make sure to fill that out. Also, before the holiday season, there's a couple really nice gift cards you could win. So make sure to complete that for a chance to win. But thank you again, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you at our next event on December 8th.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ann and David.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Same to all of you.